Hey, all you freaks and geeks, especially my brothers and sisters who love the Power Rangers as much as I do. My name is Clay, aka Big C324, and today I'm going to be talking about my top 5 favorite seasons of Power Rangers. Technically a top 6, but there are 2 seasons which I love more than all others. Like, even more than Mighty Morphin, which I know a lot of people still hold near and dear. But for me, there are 2 others that stand way above it. This is my personal opinions. It's not to sway you or to say your opinion is wrong. It's just my choice, my prerogative, if you will. There are going to be some spoilers. I'm not going to go too deep into it, but if you haven't seen these seasons and you plan on seeing these seasons, I would suggest you not look at this video because I am going to be delivering some spoilers, especially in like the top 3. But sit back, enjoy, and see if you like these seasons or even love these seasons as much as I do. Starting with number 5, Power Rangers SPD. First of all, let's talk about that theme song. They brought Ron Wasserman back, which he did the theme songs for the entire Zordon era, Mighty Morphin, Zeo, Turbo, In Space. Just always had you pumped up, always had me just ready to watch an exciting episode. It was just like that guitar riff was awesome in that. Like, it's like you're ready to fight. You're ready to fight evil, and it was just like it was done. I'm hooked. I didn't watch it while it was on the air. It happened sometime in between me graduating high school and getting into college, but I I guess it kind of slipped into my radar. And years later, I finally got to watch it, and I thoroughly enjoyed this season. My 2 favorite characters, one of which is actually going to be at Morphicon, is Z and Bridge. Those two are amazing. Z is just the girl I would absolutely be best friends with. She's sarcastic. Doesn't take she doesn't take shit from anybody, and it's just like at the same time she has a good heart. And then there's Bridge. He's crazy as I don't know what. He wiggles his finger every time he says the word buttery, and he stands on his head for to figure out clues. And it's just who else does that? But it worked for him. And the other 3, they had to grow on me. Sid, she was the typical Barbie girl. That theme song was made for her. It's like even though that was years ahead, it's like I can't not get out of my head. I'm a Barbie girl in a Barbie world when I see her. There's Jack. He's not the best leader. He lets his ego get the best of him at times, and he doesn't even want to do it at first. He's not even giving it a chance till he sees his friend Z in trouble. And he starts learning, but it takes him a while. Speaking of people who need to learn, the Sky, the Blue Ranger, Mr. Entitlement, he is just obnoxious in the beginning. Like, my daddy was a Red Ranger, so I need to be a Red Ranger too. I deserve it. It's like, no, you don't. You're not a team player. And just, he had to grow on me a lot. Like, really took a while. You have Commander Kruger, who is a great leader. He's just like you will follow him anywhere, and you do any, and he would never lead you astray. And there's Kat Minks, who is the brains behind the operation. She got to be a ranger for one episode, which I think is a waste. Like, she was a great ranger when she was. She knew how to fight. She should have been a ranger much longer than that, especially in the finale. They could have used all the help they could get. And she was amazing. She wasn't just smart, she was fierce. She was a fighter. She was hardcore. And there's Boom, who's just, your quirky side character, but he has a heart of gold. Mr. What is his name? Kelson Henderson, who's been with this show, this series, this franchise for years. And if you don't know, like, he had this very special moment on previous season Ninja Steel where he finally got to be a Red Ranger, and that was just an amazing moment. He deserved it, and I was just so happy for him. And he's just the kind of guy who makes you laugh. And And there were all these quips to previous seasons, like the A Squad, who had been missing for most of the season. They had the helmets like Power Rangers in space, which was like, wait, what? Like, why do you have those helmets? But okay, it's like 20 years into the future from the time that this was aired, which was in 2005. And so I guess it makes sense, but it was just throwing me off. I saw that. I saw a picture of Sky's dad in a Time Force uniform, and it's like, is he related to Wes? And it's like that threw me off. And then there's there's all these little hints of things in the past. Like they go in the past to team up with the Dino Thunder team, which is the scene previous to that, and is also in my top 5 list. I'm also just gonna point it out there. Um, he, there were just a lot of things that just took me back to the previous seasons, which I appreciated. And speaking, also another character, Emperor Grum. He's he's crazy. He's like always talking to himself. I should talk. He's full on crazy, always just in his head, obsessed with getting Kruger back for chopping off his like little dome thing on his head, and he's just like obsessing over this and it's just like, dude, you need to relax, like let it go. But he wouldn't. And then there's Mara, or she was, I didn't like her. She was useless. Just this little annoying little brat. And Morgana was hardcore when she was turned into an adult, and it was just this. She was a challenge for the Rangers, and it was intense, and she was good. And I wish she would have stayed an adult. It would have been. She was far less annoying as an adult to me. And then there was the main villain who didn't really show up until the end of the season. He didn't do much for me either. Then there's Sam. There's the whole Sam thing. It was a kid that Z met at the current time, who she tried to befriend and help, and then his future self came into the fray, and it's like, what? Why? Okay, I mean, he was useful for the time, but he hardly ever left his suit. He couldn't get out of his suit, and when he was, it was a ball of light. That's useful to me, not at all. But okay. But he was there, and he was helpful, and it is what it is. But overall, I like the season a lot. I like the characters. I like that aliens and humans coexist almost harmoniously. It's like they're part of the Earth now because they're refugees, and nobody's making a big deal out of it. And it's just really cool. But that's pretty much what I had to say about SPD. Number 4 is Jungle Fury. Power Rangers Jungle Fury. I think this is a very underrated season. And this is another one I didn't watch when it was on the air. It slipped under my radar because I had just finished watching Operation Overdrive the year before, and oh my god, I hated that season just so much. And I guess I was just so raw from that it just kind of slipped my mind. And I watched it recently in the past year, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. It started off with how Ninja Storm started off with just 3 Rangers, Casey, Lily, and Theo, which all were cool in their own way. Casey was the new guy who didn't really had a lot to prove because he was the new kid. He was the cub of the ninja school, and he wasn't experienced as Lily and Theo. And with the help of RJ, who, if you don't know, if those of you who saw What I Like About You, I knew who this guy was prior to that, and I was like, oh shit, dude, okay, you're a ranger too? That's awesome. That's really awesome. Of course, he was my favorite. Kind of had Ninja Turtles vibes at a pizza place, like that would be a turtle's dream. He had this zen way about him, but he was a hardcore ranger. Ended up being the the Wolf Ranger, and he was just badass. And Lily, she was awesome. She was the only girl in the team. I I know she ends up with Theo in the end, but I preferred her with Casey. I would have loved to see those two together, but that's just me. Theo was kind of uptight, kind of on Casey's back without even really getting to know him because he was jealous that he and Lily, sorry, he and Lily were getting so close and feel like he was getting left behind, and he didn't even give him a chance at first. But he grew on me, just like Sky, and it's just, he was an awesome Blue Ranger. He was a perfectionist. Like, a lot of Blue Rangers before him, it's like he was always his worst enemy, getting hard on himself, just would not let up until he got everything right, which in a way is a good thing, but at the same time, you can't let it consume you, because it did. And then there was Dominic, who came in later. He was the fifth Ranger. There was nothing to him. He was just there, unexpected love interest for Fran, who reminds me a lot of Bernadette from The Big Bang Theory. She's adorable, and she just. I'm glad it didn't take her forever to figure out who the Rangers were, because that's so annoying. Like, they're clearly the Power Rangers. Like, what's the deal? How can nobody else take this long to figure out? But it is what it is, you know. Uh, and the Daishi was a hardcore villain. He was underrated, and Camille, who appeared in Mystic Force as, I can't remember her name, but it was only 2 years later, and she looked like she aged like 5 years. Like, she got way older. It's like she went from 16 to 22 in 2 years. Like, maybe it was a hair dye, but she was not to be messed with either. Jared, the guy who was possessed by the Daishi, he was giving me some serious Draco Malfoy vibes in the beginning. Like, dude, I will punch you in the face. I'm not as scared of you. Like, sit down. But, of course, he's a bully who was bullied in the past, and you know how that goes. Like, you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem, dude. And soon he turned good, so I'm glad about that. He became a decent person towards the end, and so did Camille. And they kind of ended up together, but not really. Again, another wasted relationship aside of Tanya and Adam and a lot of other relationships that should have been, but never were. Mm, 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 mm. But I don't have too much to say about Jungle Fury other than that. The characters were good, the atmosphere was good, and the Morphers, they were completely different than anything else we've ever seen. They use sunglasses as opposed to like wrist morphers or morphers on the waist, or even cell phones, which they used a couple of times. They use sunglasses. I was like, that's different. That's so different. I thought that was pretty cool. But, it is. I mean, some people didn't like it. I've seen, but hey, when you can rock some sunglasses, you get on it. It's like the suits that they had, the kind of uniforms, those were badass. And it's just, it just worked. But that's it for Jungle Fury. Number 3 is Dino Thunder. Power Rangers Dino Thunder. Of course, this marks the return of the great Tommy Oliver, whom I met. Jason David Frank, real name. I have mixed feelings about Jason David Frank. I'm going to be honest with you. I think he's my favorite Green Ranger. He always will be. I actually liked him on Dino Thunder. He wasn't so in the way, like overshadowing the other Rangers. He was just more of a mentor. And besides, he wasn't really there. There was the White Ranger, when he was evil, fossilized him and got him stuck in his Ranger suit, and then he was invisible for a while, like a long time. Like damn, like what's going on? Why is he taking so long to get back? But it's like between Tommy as the White Ranger, the Red Ranger, and the Red Ranger again. And between that time, I was over him. But that doesn't mean I don't like Jason David Frank. He's a cool guy. I actually got his picture. I actually, yeah. I actually got a photo with him, and he signed my photo for free. So he's a cool guy all around. I like him. I had a great experience meeting him, but I'm not gonna pretend like Tommy's my favorite like most people. But he was good in this season. And the characters of Connor, Kira, and Ethan, they reminded me so much of the OG Rangers. Connor was more like Zach in a sense because he was kind of like chill bag, didn't really take the leader role as seriously first. And Kira, just like Kim, harnessing the power of the pterodactyl, she was a songbird. She liked to write songs, do music. That was her passion in life. And she was a really good singer. Like I would go to her concerts, like for real. And Ethan, he's a typical nerd, like, but he wasn't like Billy. Billy was like that technical nerd. He knew all the science stuff, and Billy was just like was always looking for like he would be like the world's greatest scientist if he were a real person. But Ethan, he was more like the computer nerd, obsessed with video games, all that. Like he was still smart, but he's just like he's gonna be one of my Comic Con friends more than the super brain. But he was cool. Like he was pretty smart to figure things out. Completely different. They didn't start out like best friends like they did in Mighty Morphin. They just it was a whole Breakfast Club kind of thing. Nothing in common. Connor's the jock. Kira's next Avril Lavigne. Connor, Ethan being that nerd. And of course, what brings them together? Detention. Like, yeah, straight out of Breakfast Club, except they got a black guy this time. And of course, Dr. Oliver. What? The last time we saw Tommy, he wanted to be a race car driver, and suddenly he's a doctor? He's a teacher? When did that come into fray? I don't understand that, but, whatever. Anything to keep the plot moving. And, Mesagog. Whew. Talk about your creepy villains. I'm at this point where I'm not easily creeped out by anything. Horror films, I watch all those horror movies from back in the day. Nothing phases me. I'm looking at Mesagog like, holy shit, who the hell are you? Like, get out of my face, get out of my nightmares. And he was not one to be trifled with. It was like a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde kind of scenario. Because it turns out that Mesagog was an old friend of Tommy's. I'm like blanking on his name right now. I hate that. But Mercer. Anton Mercer. They were doing experiments with dino drones and things like that. Like, I love that they brought back the old Dinozords. They brought back the T-Rex, the pterodactyl, and the triceratops. The original three. Because when you think about it, those were the only three that were cohesive in the Mighty Morphin era. The saber-tooth tiger and the mastodon weren't even in the same era as the dinosaurs. That was years later, centuries later. So, yeah, it makes sense that they only brought back those three Zords and gave the white and black ranger different Zords, like the Brachiozord, and I forgot what the White Ranger Zord was. But yeah, it was just really cool thing to see those Zords back again in action. It was a lot of fun. It was a fun season, and there's Devin and Cassidy. They were kind of the bulk and skull of this season, and they were clumsy and dorky, and but Cassidy was very ambitious. She knew what she wanted. She wanted to be a reporter, and she was going to do anything she could to get the story, and that would be putting herself in danger, and Devin just followed her anywhere. It didn't matter what it was. Like, they literally got in the monster's face, started asking him questions like, "Are you crazy?" But at the same time, I am impressed. This girl deserves a Pulitzer. And of course, they finally end up together in the end, going to prom. It was cute. I like those two. They're not quite Bulk and Skull, but they're better than others later on, like Victor and Monty from Ninja Steel. They suck so hard. They're not funny at all. At least Devin and Cassidy are some funny to an extent, and they have some redeemable qualities. They ended up figuring out who the Rangers were, and instead of exposing them to create her own story, she did not tell. She kept their secret, which I think was great. And so it's like, it was just like a lot of things that she could have done, because in the beginning she was pretty heartless. All she cared about was getting her story, and so I think it was really great that she didn't do that. And you know, when you start off as a character so annoying and so obnoxious, I there's another. The first impressions are a lot, but when you find a way to redeem yourself in a good way, that goes a long way with me, and I love her for that. Because oh, I don't know what that was. But yeah, that's Ilsa. Ilsa, she was a hell of a character too. She just would not let up on the Rangers. Man, her crazy ass. She had the crazy Samuel Jackson eyes, like attack. Always on. And it turns out she was like a different person underneath all of that. And it turns out she wasn't actually evil at all, and it's like such a shock. And then there was Zeltrax, who was obsessed with Tommy, getting revenge on Tommy, and they didn't really clarify on why he wanted revenge. Like, Tommy didn't really do anything to him that would like make him exact his revenge, but he wouldn't stop. He kept going on and on. I will get my revenge, Dr. Oliver. I will revenge Black Ranger. And he didn't. You know how it goes. Okay, that's all I gotta say about Dino Thunder. Next is number 3 with Power Rangers Lost Galaxy. After everything that happened in Space, I guess the writers were thinking, hey, this space thing is working, so why not go a step further? And they did. It was kind of a Star Trek kind of thing, which I don't even like Star Trek. Honestly, I found it boring, but I was just gravitated to this show. It's like we have, first of all, if you know this character, Archie Coe, this actor, he has been on a list of things: Chicago PD, CSI. I've seen him on a lot of shows. It's just like I know him so well, and it's just awesome. Like, I remember him way back when, and he was the Blue Ranger. So that was the first thing that stuck out. Looking back on rewatching it now, so that was awesome. And we had just like a lot of things. First of all, you really have to suspend your disbelief for this show, because they're in a space station, the Rangers and a massive amount of people in this space colony called Terra Venture, which is always getting attacked. Which, for the record, if it really was attacked, that dome would have cracked a long time ago. As much damage as that has been inflicted by the monsters, but Power Ranger logic. But it had a whole lot of things, like the whole Sword in the Stone premise. It had like a whole Excalibur, King Arthur, and Round Table kind of thing, except instead of one, there were 5 swords. And it wasn't. And the way that Leo, who ends up becoming the Red Ranger, it wasn't ideal how he became the Red Ranger, because his brother Mike ended up pulling up the sword first, and then Kendricks, Damon, Kai, and Maya, who they meet in what is the name of that planet? Miranoi. Um, no, which is Maya's home planet, and it's just like they're all complete strangers. They don't know each other, and they're gonna have to learn to be a team real fast. And it's just like how do we go about this? This we just are forced into this, and they kind of just accept what it is. I mean, they don't initially get along, especially Kai and Leo, because Kai is straight by the book, and Leo, who is the Red Ranger, he he's a kind of go with the flow kind of guy, but Leo is not like the typical Red Rangers beforehand. He wasn't even first hand picked. Like I said, his brother was the one who pulled the sword from the stone and was supposed to be the Red Ranger, but due to thanks to Furio, Furio, he fell in the cave and before he fell to his alleged death. He gave Leo the saber, and I was like, whoa, we're gonna kill a character right then and there. That's deep. That's so dark. It's like I guess it should make sense because they had just killed out Zordon. Like what? Who kills out Zordon? How do you kill Zordon? But they did. But so I guess anything was gonna go with this season, and it had a real dark tone to it. Like there was Deviat was a character that just was not playing around. He wanted to rule the universe, and he set up the Rangers and Scorpius, but good, real good. It was just like convinced that Trakina had been kidnapped. Trakina is Scorpius' daughter, if you don't know. He There was an all-out drag-out battle, and Trakina at first was, the typical spoiled princess. Yeah, she was evil, she did dirty tricks, but she wasn't very threatening until she met Villamax. Man, Villamax was for a villain. He was a lot about honor, and so I have a hell of a lot of respect for that, having honor, and just even if you are evil, you respect your word and just everything. But he taught her how to fight, and she became hardcore. She ended up just being a hard challenge for the Rangers until the very end, especially when she transformed into the to the to the green suit again, and it was just like that was nasty. That was a lot. That was a big process. Like, oh, that's nasty. Then but hey, when she was beforehand, she was like, it's like let's not pretend she wasn't attractive. She was gorgeous. Like they have some very attractive villains, so it's like it's hard to be against them completely. It's not like maybe I'll be evil for you for the night. But it was just, and I love all the tropes to In Space, because I'm just gonna put it out there. In Space is one tied for first, but they brought back the Astro Megaship, which the Space Rangers use in the in Power Rangers in Space. They brought back Alpha, even though I hate his voice in this. I really hate his voice. It's just very grating, very annoying. Um, People had a problem with his whole Brooklyn accent, I guess, in Power Rangers Turbo, but he was kind of rude. I will say that, but if he just lightened up on lightened up on the rudeness, I fully embrace that his voice, because he was his own character. He didn't have to pretend to be like Alpha 5, but then they tried to make him like Alpha 5, and it wasn't, because it was much, much more irritating. Much more irritating, but, Alpha is Alpha. Still sweet little robot, still very helpful. They brought back Deca, and of course they brought back the Psycho Rangers. Oh my god, talk about your threats. whew, the Saiga Rangers are no joke. No joke at all. And it ended up leading to the death of a ranger. What? How do you kill off a ranger? It's like, I don't even understand. I didn't understand that. You couldn't even wrap my brain around it. It wasn't until years later I found out that she had leukemia, which, bless her heart, I'm so happy that she survived that. I'm so happy that she's going to be a Morphagon. I can't wait to meet her. Valerie Vernon, who played Kendrix Morgan, I'm super excited to meet her. She's one of my favorite Pink Rangers ever. And that was so bold that she sacrificed herself for Cassie. And that was such a heartbreaking moment in Ranger history. One of the most heartbreaking moments. And it's just, you can't think back on that without just like, wow. Like, she did what no other Ranger did. That was one of the bravest of them all. And, like, I'm sure any of them would have done it, but none of them ever actually had to do it until now. Had to sacrifice themselves for someone else. So that was just shocking. And heartbreaking and so beautiful. And I initially thought that Cassie was going to take her place and initially that was the idea. But apparently there were money issues and stuff like that, and it turned, I guess in a way, even though I love Cassie, another one of my favorite Pink Rangers, top 5 favorite Pink Rangers, it turned out to be a surprise because the biggest shock is that Karone, who was Astronema, the main villain of Power Rangers in Space, she became good again in the end, as you well know, and she became the Pink Ranger. And I was like, whoa, go girl, yes! It's like, I'm so proud of you. You came full circle, and I couldn't be more happy for you. She and Damon, the Green Ranger, who I also met. He's awesome. I met him and Drakena. That was a real treat. It was so awesome. They're both super nice and super cool. And you'll have. I actually have a video prior to this that I made about a month or so ago. You see all the Rangers I've met so far, or at least the ones I got pictures with, because I did get to meet Wes from Time Force, but I couldn't afford a picture, and also Bulk and Skull at the Alamo City Comic Con. But yes, it was like, I love their friendship, and along with his and Maya, which I honestly thought they were gonna get together, Damon and Maya, because they had this bond, just like I thought Leo and Kendrix were gonna get together, and then he and Karone had a bit of a chemistry. So like all these relationships that could have happened but just didn't. It's like even Kai, the Blue Ranger, he